All right, everybody. She is a national board certified health and wellness coach, and she's also a Coast Guard veteran. We're going to talk to her about what she does in health and wellness, as well as her military background and also her athletic career, and amongst other things. We want to welcome to the Robinson Show, Rachelle Cannon. Hello, Rachelle. Welcome aboard.
Hi. Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. Thank you once again for taking time out of your busy schedule to be on the program. So let's start off from the beginning. I'm looking at your upbringing right here. You were born and raised in Bristol, Connecticut. Bristol is an interesting place. It's home to a sports network called ESPN. So tell me, what was your upbringing like growing up in Bristol?
It was really good, actually, and you're absolutely correct. ESPN is our claim to fame. It was kind of a small town, but fairly diverse, and it was just really positive. Really, I think that's the best thing I can say. I loved growing up there. I think it's a great place to raise a family. But I think as a young adult, and then as you get older, you really have to go to New York or Boston to get a little more exposure to more things. But otherwise, I think it was a nice place to be raised.
You know, I've heard, and you could correct me if I'm wrong, you mentioned the two major metropolitan cities, New York City and Boston, and I've heard people that live in Bristol, well, particularly people that work for ESPN, normally to get away, they normally will go to New York City or go to Boston because they serve kind of like as bedroom communities for the town of Bristol. Did you have an opportunity during your growing up to visit New York City and Boston?
Yes, several times, actually, and probably New York more than Boston. I grew up taking tap, jazz, and ballet, and when you get to the senior levels, every winter, I think it might have been January, our dance instructor and some volunteer moms we would all take a train down to New York City and go to a big dance convention. So we would stay at the Grand Hyatt Hotel, go see a Broadway show, have a nice dinner, and then the next day we would participate in a big dance convention at the Hyatt all day long. So, and then as a family, we would frequent New York City as well very often. So, yeah, love New York. Love New York.
Yeah, New York is the city that never sleeps, and a lot to love about New York. And let's stay with, I want to ask you before we move on to something else. Again, I mentioned that ESPN is headquartered in Bristol, Connecticut. The main headquarters are in Bristol, Connecticut. Did you ever have an opportunity to meet any of the ESPN personalities, such as Stuart Scott or maybe Steve Levy or Bob Lee?
No. I left Bristol. Oh gosh, let me take that back. I left Bristol when I was 17 when I went to college, and even though I went to college in Connecticut, and I did go to the Coast Guard Academy, which is down in New London, Connecticut, I left the state of Connecticut when I graduated at 21. So I had already been gone before I even knew those guys were there, and before they even expanded land-wise to all the territory they're at now. So ESPN was small in one building when I was growing up.
Okay, now let's move along now. You mentioned the military, and you served as a commissioned officer for the United States Coast Guard from 1996 to 2001. Tell me, how did you get involved in the Coast Guard?
So I, interestingly, was planning to go Army first because my father was a retired Army Reserve officer, and he was very much into history, and he took the family on a field trip, basically, to West Point in New York. And I just remember being really impressed. I thought the uniforms were nice, and I was enticed by the notion that it was a free education and you had a guaranteed job for 5 years afterwards. So I had my sights on going to West Point. And then there was I think it might have been Terryville, Connecticut, or Torrington, Connecticut, there was an all-academies meeting, so to speak, for all the high school kids in the state who were interested in going to the one of the academies, and that's where 2 Coast Guard Academy recruiters approached me, and one of whom became my sponsor dad, and him and his wife. And so anyway, they approached me and just educated me about the Coast Guard. I had never heard of the Coast Guard. Growing up in Connecticut, you would think I did, but I didn't. And so I applied to both academies. I got to spend a weekend at both academies to learn about them, and I was very fortunate. I got accepted into both, but when I weighed the pros and cons of the schools themselves, but then also the mission, that's where I thought, I want to go Coast Guard. I liked that it was a peacetime mission, saving lives, cleaning up the environment, particularly like when there's oil spills, drug interdiction, and I love the water. I love to swim. I'm a fish in the water. So that's how I ended up going the Coast Guard route.
Wow, excellent choice right there. It's interesting when a lot of people pick their next vocation in life, particularly with college. They normally pick reasons such as, well, I want to go because my friends are going there, but you were very specific on what you wanted to do and where you wanted to go, because you gave a great explanation, because as you said, you like the discipline, you like the uniforms, and also you could make a difference in dealing with water. So that's you already knew the reasons why you wanted to go to the academy. So during your time at the Coast Guard Academy, you earned a Bachelor of Science degree in political science. Now, was this something that you originally wanted to be in the field of political science, or was that the only major that was kind of like available at that particular time?
Right. So political science was nowhere on the horizon or on my radar. The academy, the smallest of all of the service academies, only offered, I think, about 6 different engineering majors, political science, management, and then there might have been computer science or something like that. And I actually, had I not been accepted into one of the academies, I would have been a residential architect. So I kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? Naively thought, well, okay, there's naval architecture at the Coast Guard Academy. That's close to architecture, in my mind, but just for ships. And I tried, and I did not do well academically my very first semester. It was quite a shock because it's completely atypical of a college with all the obligations and everything. So after not doing so well that first semester, I chose not to fight to try to go the engineering route. So I actually tried the management route, business management, and I did not do well in macroeconomics. So I thought, I guess I'll try the political science government route, which I quickly learned basically 2/3 of your grades were your papers, writing papers, and then the other third was your class participation. And I'm very comfortable talking. I can talk. And one of my strengths is writing. I can write well. And so that's really why I ended up going political science. And so I wrote very well. I finally was making the dean's list. And it was interesting. I did find the major interesting. Was it my passion? No, but I like that I got to exercise my writing skills and actually improved my writing skills. The teachers were tough, but they made you much better writer. So that's how I ended up being a political science major.
I want to stay with the political science curriculum at the Coast Guard Academy. What was the curriculum like? Because you mentioned about you enjoyed writing and you enjoyed speaking. Did you have to engage in debates, or was it anything learning about, kind of like learning about the different branches of government? What was the curriculum like at the academy?
That's a great question. I'd have to dust the cobwebs off my memory. That was like 100 years ago.
Okay, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. Gosh, we didn't have major debates, but what I do recall that stood out to me was learning about the different governments and politics in other countries. Not just the United States, but other countries. So that was, I always thought, fascinating, learning about other systems, other governments in other countries. So it's always nice. It was well-rounded. It wasn't solely just focused on the United States. So that's what stands out.
Okay, awesome. Now, you served as an officer in the Coast Guard from 1996 to 2001. Where were you stationed, and can you share with us any memories or any recollections that you may have of during your time as being an officer in the Coast Guard?
Sure. And it ended up being to 2002, so I did 6 years. You owe 5 years. I did 6. I was stationed in Atlantic Beach, North Carolina, and also spent some time in Galveston, Texas, and I was on a ship, a 180-foot buoy tender, and we basically fixed the different aids to navigation. Absolutely loved it. It was quite a learning experience. I'll say, and during that tenure, I was able to go to maritime law enforcement school, so I got qualified as a boarding officer. So basically, that's learning law enforcement, but on a boat or when you board a vessel. So we carried a 9mm gun, and you learn different tactics. If you had to take someone down, you learn about resolving conflict at the lowest level possible. So all of that was wonderful. I did experience my first really blatant sexism and racism on one of those ships. So that unfortunately does stand out as a memory, a major memory. But I had a very, very positive experience when I was then stationed in Portsmouth, Virginia. I got to attend search and rescue school, so that was fantastic, learning how, so as an officer, you don't get to do the super fun being out in the water and rescuing people, but you're back in the home base coordinating the different resources and plotting the search area to save people. So that was extremely rewarding. I even have a thank you card from this woman and her husband, because I helped coordinate to find her husband and save her husband. So, and I still have that thank you card to this day. So that was just extremely rewarding. And then almost everyone ends up having to do a tour at the Coast Guard headquarters in Washington, D.C. So that's where my last duty station was. And I was put in a office where, to be quite frank, the project I was put on was an autopilot, and there wasn't a ton of work to do. So something in my gut said, you gotta follow your passion, and that's where I knew in my heart and my gut I wanted to do something related to health and fitness. And just a few floors up, there was a program manager position that was to run the health promotion and wellness program for the Coast Guard. And so I just had a heart-to-heart with my boss, and it was considered a no-cost transfer because it was just up a few floors. So I took that leap and absolutely loved it. Had major certifications that were required, but they were extremely credible, from the Cooper Institute in Dallas, Texas. And that's when I realized, hey, if I want a job once I am out of the military in this field, I'm going to need a degree. So I knew I didn't want to have to get another bachelor's, and that's when I just happened to be looking at I'll never forget, Shape magazine. I'm flipping through, and then I did what I normally never do and just looked at the ads in the back, and I saw an advertisement for where I ended up going to grad school. So I only had one prerequisite I had to take, which was anatomy and physiology. So I went to the local community college, took that class, and got accepted. So I was able to get my master's degree, Master of Sports Science degree in health and fitness management. So I started it before I got out of the service, got my honorable discharge, and then finished my master's. And where I did my, what they call a mentorship for that degree, I did well enough to where they immediately hired me once I got that degree. So that pretty much sums that up.
Oh, well, awesome. You've done a lot. And I want to ask you about that transition, the next step that you made during your time in the Coast Guard. You mentioned that you served as a health promotion program manager. Can you explain to the audience what are the duties of that position?
Sure. So I was in charge of, forgive me, I'd have to look at my resume to recall the number, but
it's okay. It's no problem.
Yeah, so I had a huge budget, and I had 17 regional managers with whom I worked with, and they were civilians. And what you do is you look at what are the current trends and like nationwide policies for things like tobacco cessation or physical activity. And I would work with the area program managers to decide how are we going to administer these different programs to help the service members meet their requirements for passing the fitness, their fitness exams. The word evades me, but you have standards you have to meet, not just height and weight, but there was physical fitness tests that you'd have to pass. So we just worked together to not only develop policies that were applicable to us in the military, but how do we help our service members get fit, stay fit, and I would work with them to also develop tools to help themselves if they weren't always under the guise of a regional manager. So, for example, we had I worked on it was like a self-paced workbook on how to set SMART goals, and SMART is the acronym for specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time-bound. So helping members set their own SMART goals, understanding how to assess where they're at, and then what the next steps are to improve their health and well-being. So, and then the budget stuff is, how many people do we have in these different areas? How many HRAs? HRA is health risk assessment. How many HRAs do we need to order? And back then, a lot of stuff, as I'm sure you can imagine, was manual, so it was all paper. It wasn't all electronic. What machines do we need? What do we do for cholesterol testing? So we would do the basic cholesterol testing where we would use the lancet just to do a finger prick, just to get a general basic cholesterol test. So managing the budget for ordering those supplies and replenishing supplies for that. So that's some examples of what I did as a health promotion program manager.
Oh, wow, that's awesome. That's very interesting to hear that right there. It's always nice just to hear, especially with someone coming from a military background and you're hearing specific duties like that. It's always interesting right there. And I want to move along now to, you mentioned your educational background, and you earned your we talked earlier about, because you earned your bachelor's degree in political science from the Coast Guard Academy, and you earned a Master of Sports Science degree in health and fitness management from the United States Sports Academy. Now, you mentioned that you saw the ad in the back of Shape magazine, but tell our audience just in detail, like, what's the curriculum like, and what do you have to do to earn a degree or earn a master's degree in sports science?
Sure. So the curriculum involved things related to, of course, anatomy and physiology. Curriculum, and there were different paths. I chose the health and fitness path. So I learned about the ACSM's guidelines on exercise prescription. I learned about some of that curriculum is how would you, if you were to run a fitness center, what are the proper spacing, what's the proper spacing for equipment, how would you properly lay things out. There's also looking into just a little bit of the psychology behind people working out, and body image issues. So looking at some of the things from the person, ranging from the actual person who is going to be participating in health and fitness activities, or joining a health and fitness gym, and then all the way to what are the logistics of setting up an actual gym, or facility, I should say. Facility. So those are some of the things I can think of, again, off the top of my head.
Okay, well, that's good. And where is the U.S. Sports Academy located at?
So it's located in Daphne, Alabama, which is right next to Mobile, Alabama.
Okay, awesome. And then you also picked up another certification. You mentioned that you earned certification from the Cooper Institute in Dallas, Texas. Just tell the audience because I'm looking at it and it says that you became a certified physical fitness specialist, and you also earned some other certifications, such as you have a biomechanics of resistance. You're a biomechanics of resistance training specialist, and a dietary guidance specialist, and also a health promotion program director. So just kind of tell our audience just about your time and what you learned at the Cooper Institute.
Sure. So that was the beauty of the job when I was in the Coast Guard, running the health promotion wellness program. It was mandated that I go to Dallas, which, in my mind, I'm like, oh my gosh, twist my arm. It was an amazing opportunity to go there. And I spent a week there. I spent a week there obtaining the physical fitness specialist certification. So basically I was learning about how to be a personal trainer. And they have since actually changed it to a personal training certification. I don't even believe they call it physical fitness specialist anymore. And if you so elected, you could stay an extra 2 days, I think it was like over the weekend, to then get intensive instruction on biomechanics of resistance training. So you learn about proper form and function, how to teach people proper form and function, how to administer body composition tests, learning the body in proper form and also improper form, and where there's compromises to your joints that are then going to cause injury. And then the Army I'll say this, many of the branches of service, including police and fire departments, often send people, so first responders are often also sent to the Cooper Institute to learn a lot of these courses. And so when there's a site that has enough interest, instructors will go to the site. So for the health promotion director one, I actually was able to just go up the road to Aberdeen Proving Ground. That's an Army base. And that's where, for a week, you learned about how to run a health promotion and wellness program. So you learn about how to survey your population to see what their needs are. You learn about analyzing the results of health risk assessments to see where the population needs help as well. You learn about how to run contests. So, for example, let's say a step contest, how many steps can a group, the group that obtains the most steps, or whatever type of physical, healthy, friendly competition, how you would run one of those. So those are some examples, how to administer what we call pre-tests and post-tests on people's any area of wellness, quite frankly, and to see, okay, this is where they are. Here, how do we implement these different programs and then measure that change at the end of the program? And then ultimately, okay, what else can we do to help this become a lifestyle change, not just a, hey, I'm going to make a goal for 2 months, and then when I reach that goal, I'm done. So it's continuous. How do we continuously help people grow and incorporate different things to make healthy lifestyle choices part of what they do on a daily to weekly basis, not just a short-term basis?
Wow, you did a lot at the Cooper Institute, and I want to touch on one thing before we go to the next topic. You were also a dietary guidance specialist. Did that involve putting together meal plans and learning about nutrition and how it proper nutrition and how it works for the body?
Right, and it was on a basic cursory level because by no means did it make me or make you a certified nutrition counselor or a registered dietitian, but you learn enough of. It was nice because it taught us enough of the basics to where we could assist someone and evaluate maybe what someone has written down that they consume and how we can help them better balance out their meals. So it's never been about a diet or how to write a diet plan, but okay, where are the gaps in someone's meal consumption or food consumption, and how can we help them to make some different choices to better balance out their proteins, their carbohydrates, and their fats. And of course, reduce cholesterol, watch sodium, read a food label, things like that.
One thing is for sure that, diet and exercise go hand in hand. It's all about balance, and definitely have to learn. It's amazing how the body responds to certain things that you put in your body. You can't have too much of anything. You have to keep everything well balanced. So now you've had a solid upbringing, and you've earned all of, have a great educational background, and then you've had a rewarding career in the military. Now you also have a rewarding career. What brought you into the world of bodybuilding?
So, yes, I was actually in the military at the time when someone else stationed on a base happened to see my calf muscles. I was wearing the military skirt one day for some reason, and he just said, you have big calves. You should do bodybuilding. And I thought he was crazy. I thought he lost his mind because I never envisioned me doing something like that. And I thought, I'm not big enough muscle-wise. And he said, no, you could be, absolutely. And so he said, there's another person on base who actually competes. Let me introduce you to him, and he can tell you about it. And so he introduced me to this health service technician. He was a first-class petty officer, Mike Jones, and he took me under his wing, taught me how to be comfortable in the gym and use the weights, because I was very intimidated, like many women are, to go into a weight room that's full of men. So, but before we even started, he had VHS tapes, because we did not have DVDs back then, but he lent me a couple VHS tapes where I got to watch what a prejudging is like, what the finals and the routines are that you do to music, how to pose. And I loved it. I thought it was really neat, and it was great and inspiring to see these women who were fit and muscular, still feminine and healthy looking. And I thought, okay, I'm going to give this a try. And it was a very positive experience. I loved it, and I especially liked the routine part to music because it allowed me to incorporate my dance skills. Like I mentioned, I did tap, jazz, and ballet growing up, so I liked that I was able to combine the art of dance along with the physical fitness stuff that I absolutely loved. So it was like a perfect marriage. So I just was hooked. After that, I learned about how to really eat healthy. I thought I knew it, but when you get into the world of competition, you really learn what it takes to get a six-pack if you're looking for a six-pack. I knew enough basics to have a flat stomach, but not a six-pack. And just how to improve the body and to see the changes by learning how to eat healthy. I was so amazed at what I personally experienced. So that's how I got into the sport, and I was fortunate to have really good mentors along the way. And I think that's important to mention because I know from observation and just over time, learning from working with different people, that if you're not careful, the pendulum can swing way far from one direction to the other. And so fortunate that I've had mentors who helped teach me the importance of having a healthy mindset going into competing and doing what I can to not let it consume me and be the end-all, be-all, because just like, so people can develop, unfortunately, a very poor body image even when they compete. So for what most of us would think looks like a perfect body, if you don't have, I believe, if you don't have a good mentors along the way, your perception of what you see in the mirror can become very skewed, and then you never think you're good enough, and then that's not healthy either. So I know that I've been doing this since 1998 because I've had really good mentors along the way, and I know I took 3 years off in between since 1998 till now. There was a period of time I took 3 years off to go to grad school because I was also working full time, and it's a lot to balance, and you've got to. I chose to prioritize that way and not burn the candlestick at both ends. And there was a point in 2014 where I thought, I really want to focus more on career. So I took a break for 5 years from competing. And it was not just a good physical break, but also a good mental break. So, and then last year I said, you know what, I'm going to get back into it. I'm not done. So I did. So that's what I did.
That's awesome. I want to touch on a point that you mentioned. It's not just the physical side of the sport, but also the mental side of sport. Just like a lot of things in life, it's really more about the mental side of things. One of the beauties of sports is the whole psychological impact. How important is? I want you to touch more just about the psychological impact of not just in your chosen sport, but just anything in life in general. I just want you to expound more just on how important it is to have a right mental state of mind in entering something.
Sure. I would say it's extremely important to, first and foremost, determine what your why is, your reason, and get yourself acquainted, if you can, with a good mentor. And sometimes it might mean that you've got to go through a couple different mentors so you find the right one for you. Again, no matter what that field is, because it's really important to develop that emotional intelligence to know that while it can be competitive no matter what it is, don't learn self-awareness. We don't define what matters most to us. We can get lost and lose sight of that, and then that's where we start doing things that go against what we feel in our gut, go against what our value systems are, and that's where I think that people can get into dangerous waters, maybe turn to self-destructive behaviors to cope or to feel numb and not feel something, or to turn a blind eye to something that isn't feeling right or sensing right, or feeling like that we're never good enough or have to push harder to be bigger, better, stronger, faster, smarter, whatever it is, right? And so trying to keep in mind, okay, where can I find the balance in be okay if I'm not the best at XYZ or not number one all the time, and mentally being able to, yes, pay attention to the details, but what's the bigger picture, right? And what do I value, and what's adding value to my life? How am I adding value to whatever it is, and not at the cost of a healthy relationship with ourselves and our self-image, but also with others, our family, our friends. So, yeah, that's what I think.
Good points that you touched on right there. I want to stay in the world of bodybuilding for a moment. Do you remember your first contest?
I absolutely do. It was down at Norfolk Naval Station, and I think it was Norfolk Naval Station, and I might not have the name of it perfectly correct. And there were only 3 of us in my class. I'll remember that, and it was novice. And I remember I actually, because I wasn't fully sure about the whole choreography to a routine and whatnot, I actually paid someone to choreograph for me. And when I learned, this is kind of flow, from there I could spread my wings and always choreograph, not just my own, but I eventually would choreograph for other people. But yeah, no, it was very positive. I wore a purple suit. My good friend who was also in the Coast Guard, her name is Dawn. Her and her husband were there to support me, and I'm still friends with them to this day. So, like I said, that's since 1998. And, it was just a very positive experience. And looking back, I wasn't in the shape that I am now, and that's what I love. I love the evolution, and I think there is a positive to the fact that I wasn't in the shape I am today back then. And there are people who get into the sport and they get in the fantastic shape. But for me, personally, I think it's been great to see the evolution from that very first. And I think because I had that first positive experience, and I think I got either first or second. Maybe I got first in my class. But then when it came time for me to go against the other girl because she won her class, so for the overall, she won the overall or something along those lines. I like that I learned that it's okay. It's really okay if you didn't get the overall, if you didn't get first place and you got second. You get your feedback from the judges, and that's exactly what I did. And I worked on those things, and I made improvements for the next show, and it's been like that ever since. So, yeah, I definitely remember the first show.
Might I ask you, what weight class do you currently compete in, or what weight classes have you currently have competed in the past?
Sure. So I can tell you, depending on how many competitors there are that show up that day, oftentimes will determine what class you end up in. There are in some organizations will do it a little bit differently, where anything below 125 or 124 is lightweight. Anything from 124 or 125 to 140 something. I'm just making up a number because I don't remember off the top of my head. But they would group you lightweight, middleweight, heavyweight. I have competed in lightweight before as my body has grown and matured, and I've gotten to put on muscle over all these years. There have been times where I ended up in the middleweight class, and then there are times where maybe I'm the only one in the lightweight or middleweight, but because there's not that many competitors, they'll have us all together at once. But I will tell you, God, I can't remember my weight back in 1998, but I currently compete anywhere from the low to mid 120s to 130. That's where I'm at now. So.
Okay, well, one of the aspects and one of the interesting components of bodybuilding is diet. What does your diet consist of, both preparing for a competition and away from a competition?
Sure, it's a great question. Lots of lean protein sources. I choose to eat meat, so your chicken breast, turkey breast. Sometimes it may off season. I'll say I'd have something like flank steak, 93% lean ground beef, egg whites. Let's see. Off season, I'll have more of the non-fat Greek yogurt. Preparing for show, not preparing for, off season, whey protein, to make a shake for post workout. Healthy carbohydrates, so sweet potato, wild rice, quinoa, sweet potato, oatmeal. Trying to think of other complex carbs. Oh, Ezekiel bread. And then I actually get to have, I do eat a little bit of fruit. It'll be pineapple or strawberries or blueberries. For fibrous vegetables, it would be spinach, asparagus, green beans. Trying to think. Yeah, those are the main staples. Dark leafy green, any dark leafy green salad. Sometimes it'll be a vegetable medley that's got peppers and edamame in it, and carrots. Sometimes broccoli. So that's the big picture of the types of foods. And I do want to mention dark chocolate. I am a chocoholic. I love chocolate, and
okay.
I will have a little bit of dark chocolate. So when I say dark, meaning at least 70% dark chocolate every day, a little bit every day. So a little bit meaning portioned out. I definitely eat more in the off season, but I keep it under control. So I never am completely deprived of something, and that helps me to keep that balance and not binge. Because now that I will say was not the funnest experience when I was prepping for my very first show. I'll never forget my trainer was like, okay, we're going to start Monday, so all the weekend before, eat up all the complex carbs in your house and candy or no chocolate. And for 3 weeks, I don't even remember if I know I had no chocolate, and I don't remember if there were any carbohydrates, complex carbohydrates, and that was not good. Because then after 3 weeks, I binged. And so, but I'll say that I know the concept of nutrition when you're prepping for a competition has evolved, thankfully. So I have also, and so it's been great. I've learned how healthy complex carbohydrates are your friend, and it can be used to your benefit to help you to actually grow lean muscle tissue and to help you to have energy for your workouts. Again, it's all, it might sound like a cliche, but it's so true. It's all in moderation. So measuring out and having certain portions based on what your individual body type is like and how many calories your body burns and requires for the amount of activity you do.
Again, it's so interesting, with how the human body responds to a diet. You make little changes, and as you mentioned, you talked about simple complex carbohydrates. Man, they make all of the difference in the world. It's made a difference for you in what you're continuing to do in your career. Now, we've touched bases on the diet. I want to touch bases now on the training. When you're getting ready for a competition, what are your training days like?
Sure. So, changed. I will say this past year they changed compared to what they've been like over all the past years. I'll start with the cardiovascular activity. Initially, the mindset was you start with half an hour in the morning, half an hour in the evening, and then 45 minutes, and then it's an hour, and then more and more cardio. I will say for some people that works, I can tell you that while that certainly helped me to lose some body fat, it never helped get me to where I needed to be conditioning-wise. I experienced a different approach with a coach I worked with last year and I've been working with this year, and she actually has me doing only 30 minutes of high-intensity interval training for cardio. And I achieved getting to the best condition to date last year with that amount of cardio versus when I had previous trainers having me do up to 2 hours of cardio a day. So, and I'm not passing any negative judgment on coaches who have that approach because, like I said, everybody's body is different, and for a number of people that works. For me and my body, it didn't work. But what did work was the shorter period of time, intense. And the lifting, hour and 15 minutes, 5 days a week. So, yeah, and the body parts, some might only be once a week. So, like for me, my legs have been my strongest part. So I only need to do legs once a week, but my other body parts, upper body, those would be oftentimes twice a week. So on occasion, depending on how things are looking with progress pictures periodically, maybe some of the body parts in the upper body are cut back to once a week. So that's kind of what the training looks like. And I personally found, for me, it's been best to do most of it in the morning, first thing in the morning, because as an adult, working full-time, or even if you're not working full-time, let's say you've got kids or whatever, your day can escape you. And so if you can, first thing in the morning, get it done and out of the way, then it's done, you feel accomplished, you did at least something for yourself. So, and also it's, when you are getting ready for competition, it's very beneficial when we're trying to tap into the fat stores to do it, what we call fasted or on an empty stomach, doing that exercise. So that's what it's been like.
I want to stay with a little bit more on your training. You mentioned about cardio. Do you do cardio to prepare for the choreography for your routine, or as you mentioned earlier, you just simply do it just to shed body fat?
Oh, just to shed body fat. But now in the off season, I will maintain doing it at least 3 times a week for good heart health, because it's still very important. It's something I teach people in my current profession is, and I've taught over the years, our heart muscle is what we call cardiac muscle. It's a unique muscle. Our heart muscle is different than any other muscle in our body, so it's different from the muscles in our arms and legs and back and chest. And so for good cardiovascular heart health, we've got to do cardio. We have to do some type of cardiovascular activity. So that's why that's important. So I still will do cardio off season. And so for preparing for the routine part, that for me is just a matter of, the music and me listening to music and coming up with the idea in my head. But what I will say is part of the conditioning, getting ready for competition, is practicing the posing. Can't emphasize enough how difficult and challenging that is, which is why to this day I still will go to a posing class and get posing, attend these classes where my posing coach will, Rod, he will have us hold our poses and put us through all the different poses. And it's really challenging because basically you're doing what we call a static contraction. So you're flexing the muscle and you're holding it. Whereas, in the gym, when you're, let's say, doing a bicep curl, you're contracting your muscle and then you're relaxing it, right? But when you are on stage, you're in that contraction phase and you have to hold it for sometimes up to a minute, all right, 30 seconds to a minute. So you've got to practice that, and that's conditioning your body to be able to hold it, learning how to breathe and control your breathing so your stomach isn't, going in and out dramatically. And it's conditioning your muscle memory so that when it comes time to be on stage, your body remembers, okay, this is what I have to do, and I'm going to hold it. And the more you practice it, like I said, the more conditioned your muscle is, and the less your body will actually sweat. Because when you're deconditioned, you're sweating your tush off. But that's just another sign of conditioning or not, is practicing that posing. So that's just another element of preparation for a show.
Awesome. Now, continuing just in preparation for shows, do you compete in natural-based drug-tested competitions, or do you compete in just competitions in general, or do you have a preference?
Sure. So I have competed in natural drug-tested, and there are, testing can happen with any organization, but certainly some, it's straight out the bat, that you're going to be tested for sure. I don't have a preference. I have chosen to compete, in organizations where I could look at your top females who had similar body structure, height as me, and I would say, okay, what's going to help me to, what's inspiring me, what's going to help me to work harder and become better and become the best me I can. So I will say across the board, whether it's drug tested or not drug tested, there are amazing athletes, and I can compete in any of them, but again, I choose to go with, okay, where am I going to be challenged, where I feel is challenged the most. So since earning my pro card in one particular organization and choosing to accept it, I am committed to just that one organization. And I'm okay with that because I have experienced competing in several different organizations.
I want to stay with competing in contests. When you've done all of your training and you've followed the diet and you're ready to go and compete and hit that stage, do you ever get a little bit intimidated sometimes with the competition that you're up against, knowing that not all, but some of the competitors are not competing the right way, or do you just kind of just go about doing your thing and just you've put your best foot forward and you've done your best?
Every single time, always competed, always intimidated, but it's if this makes any sense, it's a healthy intimidation. It's wow, that's impressive, right? And but I feel good. But this is where, again, I keep talking about the good mentorship. That's where, while I naturally will be intimidated, I also feel good about, hey, I've done all that I can, and even if I haven't been able to do all that I can, but feel ready to go ahead and do it, I do it because I enjoy this as a celebration of the body, the health, being healthy, being able to display hard work in the gym, and ultimately, I'm a performer. I love to, dance is my background. So for me, it's, hey, I hope that I place well enough to where I get selected as one of the top 5 or top however many who gets to perform the routine at night on stage. So, yeah. Then I do it.
Oh yeah, I understand. I wanted to ask you, do you compete naturally?
I do.
Okay. All right. And then you mentioned that you earned your pro card, so congratulations on that. How did that happen?
So I competed in a local show that was designated as a qualifier, a pro qualifier, which meant if you won your class in whatever your division was, qualified you to. Some shows it's if you win first place, if you win your class. Sometimes it's if you place top 3 or top 2, whatever. So I competed in a local show in Maryland, and actually competed in 3 different divisions. And so I qualified. I got first in all of them. Then that qualified me a week later to go to a national level show. Actually, it's an international show in competition in Pittsburgh, and that's where I entered a couple different divisions and actually got my pro card both in the bodybuilding and the women's physique. So 2 different divisions. I was blessed to do well in both of them.
Awesome. Congratulations again on that. Now, I want to ask you before we go to another topic, what are your favorite cheat foods?
Pizza.
Okay.
Chocolate cupcakes.
Okay.
And French toast. French toast and chips. Chips. I like any type of Maui onion flavored chip, sea salt, cracked pepper, anything that's got a sweet taste, honey barbecue. Yeah, those are the main things right there. Anything chocolate and peanut butter. So, yeah, anything chocolate.
Oh, yeah, you did mention you like your dark chocolate. You are a chocoholic, so there you go. While we're on the topic of food, food deserts have been a problem for quite a while in our country, and the lack of accessibility to organic markets and grocery stores and things of that nature. Are you involved in any initiatives in terms of combating food deserts and just getting the word out on how people can balance their diet?
So, not outside of work, I don't, but in my job, I do with some of the patients that we work with, get them connected to local state programs that will help subsidize the opportunity to buy foods at different markets. Also, working with the community health workers who are out there in the field, who are on the ground and able to say, hey, there's a new farmer's market here, or, we found, this location here and so working with them to get resources and connect them with those community health workers to get that accessibility. Yeah, so a little bit in my professional career, yes.
Okay, great. Now, I want to talk about just how important it is for health and fitness in our minority communities. Again, it's a similar situation with food deserts. We have, food, again, it seems that we have more fast food restaurants and more fast food restaurants and less fitness centers in our urban areas and even some rural areas as well. Just got to tell our audience just how important it is, how important health and fitness is in minority-based communities, and just getting more people involved in whatever type of activity they like.
Sure, it's vital. It's because it really affects the immune system, the physical activity, and of course the choices of food. And while, let's say, there's not access or monetarily can't go to a fitness center, there are so many things that can be done with just our body weight, and so in our communities where there's not that much, that's why it's so important to, with thanks to the internet, I will say, taking a look to see what are different things that we can do inside our home? What are some things inside our home that we can use, like jugs of water or milk, to have some resistance training, learning how to maybe incorporate using our kids, like holding our kids on our back and doing a body weight squat. I mean, there are Dollar Trees and dollar stores, even Five Below, where it's really great. These places do sell sometimes some basic equipment like resistance bands. So, I think no matter where the community is, everyone seems to have access to a cell phone, or the internet, and really utilizing those things because, as we can see with what's going on in the current state of affairs, unfortunately, the bulk of our people who are passing away are people of color. And, until we can get on a more equal playing ground, a level ground with access, not just to healthcare, but to several other things, it's really important to do what we can with what we've got, which, we've had to do for hundreds of years anyway, but just making a choice, making a decision to say, okay, I might not be able to have access to this, but this is what I can do, and there's a ton of resources now online to what we can do fitness-wise, because that, along with, hey, yeah, there's a lot more fast food places, but guess what? Let's pay attention to the fact that even just through the drive-thru, they're going to they now almost all post how many calories are in different things. Let me choose the smaller option or choose the lower calorie option because we've got to start lowering our rates of diabetes, type 2 diabetes and obesity and high cholesterol. So yeah, that's my input on that.
Well, Rachelle, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to be on the program. And before we let you go, can you let the audience know where they can find you on social media? And if you have a website, let them know that as well.
Sure. Instagram, and my handle is at Rachelle Cannon. That's RACHELLECANNON Fitness. So it's Rachelle Cannon Fitness. So that's where I can be found on Instagram. And then, and that's it for now.
All right. Well, you heard it from her. She's Rachelle Cannon. She's a professional athlete competing in bodybuilding, and also she's doing her thing in the health and fitness world. Rachelle, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to be with us on the program. And if ever you want to come back on, feel free to let us know.
Great. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you having me, and I appreciate your time as well.
No problem, and thank you once again. And that's going to do it for another exciting edition of The Robinson Show. I'm your host, Ed Robinson. Remember, put God first in everything you do, and you can't go wrong. Until next time, stick to the script. I'm out. Until next time, I'm out of here. Peace.